Some families stay together not because they are healthy, but because they quietly decide who will bear the burden. One child becomes the person everyone can point to when tension rises, the one whose behaviour is exaggerated, whose mistakes are remembered, whose ordinary adolescence is framed as rebellion. That child is not necessarily the most troubled, they are simply the most useful for the story the family needs. This is the scapegoat child. Around them, parents may seem competent, siblings might appear more straightforward, and the family can avoid confronting the deeper fractures among the adults. As an adult, this role often persists as a strange residue, a feeling of being watched, of being prejudged, of needing to explain your motives before anyone has asked. It is a tiring way to live, knowing that other people's discomfort might once again be placed on you. It was never solely about behaviour, it was about maintaining a fragile family narrative that required someone to absorb the blame. That is where this story begins. In family psychology, the scapegoat child is not the bad child, but the identified problem that allows everyone else to remain unexamined. Scapegoating is a systemic tactic. Instead of recognising that the parents are overwhelmed, the marriage is strained, or there is an untreated mental health issue, the family settles on one explanation: this child. Their moods, sensitivities, and mistakes become the organising narrative. The standard for them is different. What a sibling can do and be called normal, they do, and it becomes evidence. Sometimes there is also a golden child in the same home, which deepens the division. One child to idealise, one child to bear the disapproval. Over time, the scapegoated child learns that belonging is conditional on accepting a particular image of themselves. This training rarely remains in childhood. As adults, former scapegoat children often enter rooms with a quiet expectation that others will misunderstand them. They over-explain emails and apologise before accusations arise. They monitor tone carefully because, in their experience, relationships can change suddenly. Some become high performers at work or in studies, trying to outrun an old verdict by generating so much evidence of competence that no one can unfairly blame them. Others do the opposite, resisting authority and pushing back against anything that hints at the family's unfair rules. Relationally, the pattern is troubled. Some become fiercely independent, insisting that no one will tell their story again. Others keep finding groups, workplaces, friend circles, even romantic partnerships, where they end up holding everyone's frustration. It is not that they like it, it is what feels familiar. Being misunderstood is familiar. Being the person who has to explain is familiar. So even in adulthood, many of them are still trying to prove something simple. I was never the problem. Another feature is preemptive guilt. Because they were quickly blamed as children, they sometimes assume they have done something wrong before the facts are clear. They send clarifying messages, provide context, and try to manage how others perceive them. This can make them appear overly responsible, even controlling, but it is actually a form of defensive self-protection. In group settings, they may be the ones to name the conflict first because they are used to feeling it targeted at them. At the same time, there is often a split inside. Part of them is defiant. You will not define me again. And part of them is longing. Please finally see me clearly. That oscillation can confuse partners and colleagues. One moment they seem resistant and guarded. The next, they overshare in the hope of setting the record straight. Beneath both actions lies the same childhood desire, to live in a system where they do not have to take in what belongs to others. When this desire is unmet, they may quietly withdraw from families, churches, or workplaces that repeat the pattern, opting for small, safer circles rather than large, unjust ones. Scapegoating in families persists because it protects the system, not because it reflects truth. When a family faces stress, someone must bear the tension so that the adults do not need to change. Instead of two parents admitting there is conflict between them, or that a caregiver is depressed, addicted, or inconsistent, the energy is redirected towards the child who is easiest to blame as the issue. That child becomes the container for what the adults cannot confront. Once the story is established, It becomes self-perpetuating. Every mistake by that child is seen as further proof, and every mistake by others is quietly overlooked. Often the psychological driver is shame. A parent with a fragile sense of self cannot tolerate being seen as the one who failed, so they externalise the failure. Sometimes this is connected to narcissistic traits, where the parent needs to maintain a grand image of being competent, loving, and morally correct. To preserve that image, they divide the world into good and evil, loyal and disloyal. One child reflects them and is celebrated. Another child reveals friction by asking why, by being sensitive, by simply not fitting, and is relegated to the role of troublemaker. The message is straightforward but effective. The problem is not in me, it is in you. Family dynamics among siblings can intensify this divide. When there is a golden child, everyone now has a point of comparison. Approval flows toward one side, criticism toward another. Siblings may even join the storyline to protect themselves. I'm not like her, so I stay approved. This is triangulation in action. Two people unite against a third to ease their anxiety. The scapegoated child becomes the outsider by design, so the bonds between others seem more seamless. Even neutral actions from them can be perceived negatively because the role is doing the interpreting. The child's body and mind adapt to this pattern. Unpredictable criticism causes hypervigilance. They listen to voices, footsteps, and timing. They try to anticipate anger. When explanations do not alter the verdict, they learn a more profound lesson. It is not what I do, it is who I am here. That is a shame. Shame travels differently from guilt. Guilt says, I did something wrong. Shame says, I am the wrong one. Carrying that belief for years results in an adult who doubts their perception, who second guesses even small decisions because an early audience taught them that their version of reality will be overruled. There is also an attachment component. For some of these children, the moments of most significant belonging and the moments of most incredible accusation occurred in the same relationship. Love and blame were delivered together. The nervous system then learns that closeness comes with distortion. As adults, they may find themselves in workplaces, friend groups, or partnerships where this pairing repeats. I am included here, but at any point they could turn on me. This is not self-sabotage for its own sake. It is the repetition of a template that once made sense. So, the adult outcome goes beyond low confidence. It serves as a model for group dynamics. Each group has a specific problem, narratives can quickly become fixed, and your safety hinges on how others perceive you. To avoid being excluded again, people tend to overserve, take on responsibilities that are not theirs, apologise early, or in some cases, reject the whole situation and become openly oppositional. All of this originates from the same early dynamic, a family that remained united by projecting its heaviest feelings onto the smallest member. In adulthood, the old scapegoat role often re-emerges in quieter, more disguised forms. At work, this can manifest as being the person who absorbs collective mistakes. When a team misses a deadline, communication is unclear, and several people contribute to the confusion. The former scapegoat steps forward to explain, take responsibility, and maintain a smooth atmosphere. They do not do this because they enjoy blame. They do it because they have a deep procedural memory from childhood. Groups remain stable when someone agrees to be the problem. Therefore, they volunteer, not out of weakness, but out of habit. In friendships, the pattern often resembles being the friend who listens to others' frustrations, but doesn't share much of their own. Others vent. They listen and contain. When conflict arises within the group, eyes tend to turn towards them, as they are comfortable narrating what went wrong. The danger is that they may once again become the emotional dumping ground, the place where everyone unloads their discomfort. When they finally set a boundary or go quiet, people might misinterpret it as hostility, because their role has been to be endlessly available. Romantic relationships each have their own version. A partner's criticism can seem disproportionately loud, not because the partner is cruel, but because criticism is layered over past accusations. The person might apologise quickly, offer lengthy explanations, or try to manage the partner's mood to prevent escalation. Some even provoke minor disagreements when intimacy feels too exposing, recreating the push-pull they experience at home. Connection, then rupture, then repair, which they take on themselves. Others stay half a step away, as closeness was once the place where misrepresentations occurred. There is also the long inner project. Many adults who were scapegoated as children recount their lives as a form of healing. They write, speak, create art, or simply tell friends the real story. This is not attention seeking, it is narrative repair. Being misrepresented early on creates an almost archival impulse. I will preserve evidence of who I truly am. Social media sometimes becomes a tool for this, a place to express the nuances their family never allowed. When family members see this, they may accuse them of exaggerating or still being dramatic, which only confirms that the old lens remains active. Contact with the family of origin can freeze the role in time. Even if the adult is now stable, kind, and competent, the family may still refer to them as the difficult one. Old incidents are recounted, stripped of context. Invitations arrive late or not at all. They might still be called upon during conflicts because the system remembers them as the ones who can handle pressure. This can be confusing for the adult who has done significant personal work. They are living a different story, but the family keeps circulating the old script. Finally, there is a social cost. People who grew up being scapegoated may prefer smaller, carefully selected circles over large, status-driven groups. They trust environments where nuance is permitted, where disagreement does not lead to exile. To outsiders, this can seem aloof or guarded. In reality, it is a form of protective selectivity. They know what it is to be cast as the problem, to keep a system comfortable. They would rather belong in modest, genuine ways than shine in a room that might turn against them tomorrow. Beneath all these adult behaviours is a simple organising principle: stay included, remain accurately perceived, or leave. The childhood lesson was that inclusion without accuracy is too costly. When a family makes a child its scapegoat, it chooses stability over honesty. It is easier to blame the problem on one small person than to admit that the adults were in conflict, that attachment was inconsistent, or that shame was controlling the household. The child then grows up within a distorted mirror and spends years trying to see themselves clearly. In adulthood, this can manifest as reserve, as constant clarification, or as a quiet refusal to engage with systems that punish difference. None of this indicates they were ever the cause of the damage. It merely means they were close enough, sensitive enough, or inconvenient enough to attract projection. Understanding this pattern involves distinguishing character from role. A role can be created to protect a family. A person cannot be reduced to it. What remains is the adult task of telling a more truthful story about who they were and who they became, so that old accusations no longer shape their life. Being chosen to bear a family's blame never meant they were the blame. Clarity is not retroactive approval, but it offers a more precise position for the rest of their adulthood.